Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today, we are going to be going over what seasonal or elite units are in this game, and which ones you should use and when you should use them. So just to start, elite and seasonal units are basically the same thing. They're seasonal units, and all of them are elite this, like elite main battle tank or elite attack helicopters, are either improved and modified versions of existing units, or completely new units with different mechanics and different abilities. These are unlocked every season, and a season is pretty long. It can last like 100 days, a couple hundred days. They're unlocked in these seasons, which gives you access to them. So you need to earn your access to these seasonal units, which then have new abilities or are improved versions of existing units. So how do you unlock them? Every season, 2 or so units will either be new or they'll be rotated from units that were unlockable in previous seasons, will be set. And you can earn points by eliminating units in that season in as many games as you want. And then once you reach the certain amount of points, which can be like 2,500, say, once you reach that, you will unlock the unit for that season. And if you have a Security Council membership, you will have that unit unlocked permanently. And then after that, you can mobilize and use the unit in any way you want during the game. So each season, they can either develop new ones or have existing ones, which makes it very hard to get access to units that were like previous units. Like, for example, the Elite Main Battle Tank was the Season 1 unit. So we don't know exactly when they're going to come back or if they're going to come back. So just focus on the ones that are this season. Like this season, for example, one of them is the Elite Frigate. And then after you unlock them, you have to pay to keep them, but they are pretty useful in that regard if you're interested in using them. So now I'm going to go through each elite unit and recommend which ones. So the first unit we're going to be going over is the Elite Main Battle Tank. And this Elite Main Battle Tank, just like all elite units, require you to unlock a certain tank before it. So for example, the Elite Main Battle Tank requires you to unlock the main battle tank before you can even build it. So there are 2 requirements. 1, you need to have a researched previous unit of a basic version of that unit, and you need to have unlocked it getting season points. And then after that, you can research and build it. This unit is decent. It's not the best elite unit, as it doesn't really have that many specialized characteristics. There's a limited mobilization of 5 of them. They can boost your army by 5% attack damage, and they have slightly protected against weapons of mass destruction. But other than that, it's just an improved version of the main battle tank that is in and of itself more expensive. So I would recommend this if you happen to already have it unlocked from Season 1. I would recommend using it middle to late game after you have the main battle tank unlocked, as long as you're using the main battle tanks. It's not something you're going to want to go out of your way to use. It's not something that you're going to want to use main battle tanks just so you can use the elite main battle tank. If you happen to be running tanks in your game, use it. If you don't have it, it doesn't really matter. It's not like a game-breaking sort of mechanic or ability. So the next unit we're going to be going over is the Elite Attack Helicopter. And the main thing I want to look at for these units is the maxed out level 3 version, because this one has stealth and storm position. But the most important thing is stealth, because it is a stealth helicopter, which is very expensive to get to, as you have to unlock on day 20 after getting level 6 of a previous helicopter or level 2. And then you need to follow all of these research paths and then build it. It's very expensive to get to, but if you like helicopters or use helicopter carriers, having the stealth version makes it extremely powerful, especially when you use some stealth versions of that and then use the researched version of the attack helicopters or helicopter gunships that you've already built. Mixing that together is very good, and it's not really all that more expensive than the previous helicopter. It has a few more components, a few more manpower, a little bit more electronics, but it's not anything that's crazy. The only thing that is different is it has a lot more cost of the in-game money, not gold, the money currency that you have. But that shouldn't really be a problem, especially by the time you get to building it late game. Its production cost is that. But the main thing you're looking at this is the fact that it has stealth, which is very useful. It's definitely something that you should use if you have unlocked. So the next one we're looking at is the Elite AIP Submarine, which this unit isn't really all that different from the normal attack submarine, except in one key area. It has similar combat statistics, similar movement, similar production cost, but is a lot more stealthy than the other submarines. Therefore, it's one of the better units in the game, and is definitely something you should use if you have unlocked, 100%, especially because you should be using submarines in your military navy to begin with. If you have this, it's definitely worth using. The next one, the Elite Railgun, The strategy for this one, because you have a limited 5x mobilization, this is one of the better units in the game that you need to mix in with your multiple rocket launching systems. If you have this, it can deal both damage to units at a range, and then at the level 2 version of this, it can serve as both a ranged attack and it has air defenses. So say you mix maybe 2 of these elite railguns into a stack with 3 multiple rocket launching systems, you have insane damage to units, ground units, and you have an air defense system without having to even research or build air defense systems themselves. The thing is, its damage against missiles isn't the best in the game, so if you're focusing on that, it really can't serve that purpose. But it's very powerful for that ability to both have the air attack damage, or the ability to shoot down anything that's trying to do air attack damage on it, and has super strong damage to units at a decent range. The one downside is level 1 and level 2 of the railgun have a slightly lower range than the multiple rocket launching system has at its level 1. But by the time you get it to level 3, it's okay anyways. And the range for the level 1 and level 2 isn't game-ending. So the next unit is the Elite Bomber, and the main difference this has between normal bombers is the fact that it can carry ballistic missiles. So if you really care about ballistic missiles and are using bombers anyways and happen to have this unlocked, just build it so you can put your ballistic missiles in it, especially since cruise missiles take a little bit more resources to build. If you have this, you can add ballistic missiles, which is very unique because it's the only bomber in the game that can do that. But if that's not very important for you, and you were going to research cruise missiles anyways, this one's not super important to have, but it is useful for that ability. The UGV is probably the worst elite unit in the game, in my opinion. It's not horrible. The issue with it is it deals damage. It's expensive to build. I mean, it deals pretty good damage. It's expensive to build. But it needs to be deployed by either naval infantry, special forces, or mechanized infantry, all of which are very expensive. And the fact that it needs to be deployed by expensive troops and is itself pretty expensive with 30 of those things for, I don't know exactly what these are called, but 30 of these deployable gear for production cost on top of the research cost. It's not that great, especially when you can just have main battle tanks and most people don't use those units anyways. It's not one of the better units in the game. The Elite Loitering Munition is pretty good, but it needs to be deployed. So it's a deployed armament that can be deployed, and the one you're going to want to be probably deploying it with is something like a Corvette, motorized infantry, combat recon vehicle, etc. Any of the stuff you have, even something like a mobile radar if you need to be able to protect that mid-game. It's single use. It's something that you use your deployable gear, and it can attack, and then you launch it as something, and it can deal pretty strong damage for only taking 10 deployable gear. It depends on your situation. If you need to deal something like, if you are really attached and really like this deployable form of combat and are using deployable gear, it is very strong. But it can't itself always be used in every single situation. So it's one of those that, can be good, but also certain situations isn't good. Would recommend, though, if you can make a good use of it, as it is. So our next unit is the Elite Attack Aircraft, and this is one of the best elite units. Because it has super strong damage when you compare it to the, the strike fighters, and is slightly cheaper in some areas than the strike fighters. The only downside it has is the fact that even at the highest level, it doesn't have a stealth version of it. So if you're looking for stealth, you still need to build the stealth strike fighters, if that's something you really like. But other than that, it has much better damage. You are limited to 15 at the highest level. You start with being limited to 5, but then it goes up to 5, 10, and then 15. You are limited on them, so if you like building like 20 or 25 Air Force aircraft, you can't do that. But they're cheaper in certain areas and deal more damage, which makes them very useful. And then the next one is the Elite Frigate, which is very, very good. If you're playing within 100 days of this video coming out, it's the current unit for our current season. It's faster than the normal frigates. It has better air defense. It's a little bit more expensive, but I'd say it's worth the cost. And it can carry helicopters and has better range. So even though it's more expensive and doesn't have that many different combat abilities, the specialized features that it has definitely makes it better, as its attack range is 75 at level 1. I don't know if that goes up between level 1 and level 3. Oh yeah, it does. It goes up to 100, which that is very, very useful. So next, elite special forces should only be something you're looking at if you use special forces to begin with, because they actually have lower attack stats than special forces themselves. They cannot do air assault. They do move a little bit faster and can be mobilized in provinces, though, which, can be better depending on what you prioritize. For this one, if you play special forces, I would look at it, look at the things that I just said, see how important the differences between the two units are for your specific games, and use them from there. But it's not one of the best elite units in the game or anything. So our next one is the satellite. And the satellite is one of the more interesting ones because it is very expensive, especially if you want to get it to level 3. It is very expensive. You're limited to 5 of them. Even at level 3, you're limited to 5 of them. You're limited at 4 of them at level 1. Their unique ability is the fact that they have really, really, really good range. I can see almost anywhere on the map as like a normal satellite would be able to. And your enemies will not know that you're watching them. Because unlike when you pull up a radar or an AWACS or something like that, they cannot see that the satellite is looking at them, which makes them really good for looking at your enemies, especially late game when you might want to look somewhere you can't just fly a plane or drive your radar to. It's very useful, but they are extremely expensive, and their daily upkeep can build up over time. It's not in and of itself anything crazy, but when you have 4 or 5 of them, it definitely builds up. So I would recommend it late game if your enemies are doing stuff that you really can't use your other units for. I'd recommend going for radars and AWACS first, and then moving into satellites if it's something you need late game and cannot go with the other ones because they're just not working. If you need the extra range, build this, but I wouldn't to begin with. And the final one is the Elite Drone Operator. This is one of the most unique units in the game. It's one of the elite units that adds something new and is a completely new unit in and of itself. So yeah, just like all of them, it has the limited mobilization, but this one's unique ability is it can deploy drones for a specific cost depending on them. So for example, this one costs 300 of the money. This one costs nothing. It's just deployed. And then the sabotage drone costs, I believe it costs more other money. Yeah, 550 money. So it can deploy these drones, and then they either deal damage or are recon drones. It's kind of like an all-in-one unit. It's got the recon and the sabotage and then stuff like that. It's very unique. I think it's very specialized depending on what you're going to do, and can be very strong if you put them in stacks and just start launching your sabotage drones at people. It depends on your game, just like a lot of these. I can't just say this is very good, because it's not like the Elite Frigate where it's just better than the frigate you probably are using to begin with. This one really depends on your certain situation, and I don't have this unit, but I'm pretty sure if you're sending a bunch of sabotage drones or explosive drones or recon drones, it's going to mess up your KD because they're going to be getting killed as units, meaning it's going to count as units dying for you. So if that's something you care about, I wouldn't really use it, but I think it's very powerful when you put them in stacks and just can start spamming drones, especially if you need something to go somewhere your other units aren't and can't do all of that if you're short on units. But it really depends on what your uses are. So there you have it. That is all of the seasonal elite units in the game. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions. I've seen in my past videos people have been putting where they disagree with me in the comments, which is perfectly fine. I love having these debates with you guys over what you agree with and what you disagree with which seasonal units I said are good and which ones aren't. So let me know down in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.